as well to this. Alright, you guys, welcome. Welcome back to another Sunday Bible study. Hope you guys are doing good. I think it's working everywhere right now. At least it says it is. Yep, okay. So, let's go ahead and get a little bit started. First of all, I want to say I hope you guys are all having a blessed and good weekend. All right. So we're going to be doing chapters 17 and 18 today. Last week we did 2 chapters, and it was pretty good. Definitely got in depth with it. Didn't think it was going to be as much. We're going to go ahead and get started because we know how sometimes it goes a little bit, like I said, longer than expected. This is going to be really, really good, and it starts out really good too, because it's like the first time a couple disciples hear God's voice, and it's cool to see how, like, what is their reaction, plus Jesus is with them, so like what does Jesus say to them, and some other stuff. So it's like, you know, if you are curious, you know, just to like, because I think anybody would be curious when you say, hey, you know, somebody, like a human being, heard God's voice, right? No matter who it is. But this is and the cool thing that I found out is, because this is from like Matthew's point of view, and you will see here in a minute of like one of the extra captions that are in my Bible. It kind of talks about it, but different disciples will talk about their perspective of things, and sometimes they leave some stories out, and then others will put other ones in, and also like from their experience, like if they were there or not, kind of thing. So, and we know Matthew, which is what we're starting in the New Testament, he's a tax collector, so he has to do with like, he's more analytical and money based. So like he understands like where for example, where Luke is a doctor. Okay, so the disciples that Jesus chose were like people who had professions. They were doing different things, but they were not the same. Okay, it's not like he went around and collected, you know, the 12 most holiest men, in a sense, like who claim to be the most holiest men, should we say. So I thought that was like, that's pretty intriguing, and it's cool because certain stories are like similar but like told a little bit different. So all right, let's go ahead and get started. You guys should be able to see it up there on your screen right there. I think everything's set good. So, and after 6 days, Jesus, he takes Peter, James, and John, his brother. He brings them up to a mountain, transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white. Okay, and behold, there appeared unto them Moses, Elias, talking with him. And for anybody that does not know, Elias is, if I'm not mistaken, it was Elijah. He was like the first prophet. So, okay, here we go. And we all know Moses. Everybody should know Moses. Parted the Red Sea, saved the Egyptians from slavery. Okay, led his people to the promised land. Like in the beginning. Okay, so then answered Peter and said unto Jesus, Lord, is it good for us to be here? If thou wilt, let us make here 3 tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, and one for Elias. So first he's like, are we even supposed to be here? Because, okay, Moses and Elias is dead at this point, and they can see them, and they know that they're there, and their presence is there, like probably in spirit and ghost, kind of, in a way. But at the same time, I mean, even before that, like they talked about like how Jesus is his face shined like the sun, and his raiment was white like the light. So like it's a very intense moment at this point, right? It's like something special and out of the ordinary is happening. So like extra, like out of this dimension in a way, you would want to say, like out of this physical world, like something that we're not used to. So like something special is happening, they notice it, and then Peter even has respect, are we even supposed to be here? He took these three up there for a reason. Jesus wouldn't have chose them if he didn't, but he chose these three to come up with him to the mountain. And then this starts to happen. Tabernacle is a hut where they would worship inside. So should we make like special huts to worship these men, right? Is what he's asking. Now get this. This is when God's about to speak here. Then I'm gonna scroll down a little bit for you guys. I don't want you guys to miss out on this. It says, while he yet spake, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face and were sore afraid. Okay. And Jesus came and touched them and said, arise and not be afraid. And when they had lifted up their eyes, they saw no man save Jesus only. So just Jesus. So let's read. Let's just continue with all this and then we'll go over it. Verse 9. And as they came down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, saying, well, okay, actually I want to talk about this for a quick second before we kind of like get to that part. So like they already kind of see these like spirits and they're like already like in shock and awe. They don't think they should be there. Then all of a sudden they hear God's voice. And I'm sure when you hear God's voice like that, like not many people get to hear God's voice like that. I think you had to be like super in tune with God at like a crazy faith level. And also like that's Jesus' son and he's given like clear orders. More powerful than ever. Not to mention like Jesus hasn't died on the cross yet, so like the Holy Spirit and stuff, that kind of, because Jesus used to speak to like Moses through a firing bush. He spoke to many different people in the Old Testament in different ways to get their attention, where now we kind of have the Holy Spirit directing us and guiding us in a way. It reminds us like, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. It gives you a peace of mind when you're doing things, so that way you're on track. You don't think twice about it. When you're doing wrong, it'll guilt trip you in a way. So like things like that. So it's funny in a way that like as soon as they hear them, they like are spooked. But there's and God says the only one that we're supposed to fear is God himself. So and I'm sure God wasn't like yelling or sounded angry, but I bet you it was so loud and like stunning that they were like trembling, like as if there was an earthquake all of a sudden, right? If there was a huge earthquake or, like everything's like just, you feel so belittled, like you are helpless, like you're vulnerable, right? Like you're just, and then like authority, like, so like they just instantly just fell to their face, probably like like kind of like bowing down, but like just like please don't do anything to us kind of thing, what I'm saying? Like scared, like super scared, how people would like bow down to kings and stuff, such as like stuff like that. So like, but they did it out of fear, and Jesus instantly told them, arise, don't be afraid. All right, so now this is verse 9. And as they came down from the mountain, Jesus told them, tell the vision to no man until the Son of Man, which is him, be risen again from the dead. All right. So he's like, don't tell anybody about this until I die. And I do what I'm supposed to. And his disciples asked him, saying, why then say the scribes that Elias must first come? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Elias truly shall first come and restore all things. But I say unto you that Elias is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. So Elias came first, and he was supposed, like, God tried many different ways to get our attention as mankind, and a couple different ways didn't work out the way he planned. Satan is pretty powerful, and he works in other people. So he works in ways of trying to battle what God is doing here on earth, for example. And it's still happening today. You see people getting really people are getting very sensitive and offended by every little thing, even if it was, some things weren't meant that way. They see it that way, so therefore they are like trying their best to get rid of things. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Bible or something like that is going to be one of their targets next. Okay. It's building up to where, because I saw a Satanist Facebook message a friend of mine posted that, like, they're like, oh, well, now since we're banning all kinds of different books, because you guys heard about the Dr. Seuss books and stuff, I'm not going to get into it because there was a couple things where he did previously that showed that he was a little bit racist. And also, so I can almost, I'm not like for or against it, but I'm not blind to the situation, shall we say. So, but like, you can see how crazy and evil the world is, because I mean, like, some of the song of the year and like the lyrics in it and stuff like that is like very, very wrong. Once you know right and wrong, like evil, like good and evil, once you understand that, it's definitely on the evil side. And it's, I mean, it's things that would have been censored a long time ago. And it's just, I mean, if it's inappropriate for a kid, okay, if it's inappropriate for a child to know at a young age, then it's evil, it's bad. Like, we just think that because we get older that is like it's more okay, or it's like more. So what happens is, like, kids learn at a younger age nowadays, and they're more corrupt, and their minds are really messed up. Unless they get sheltered a little bit from society, and then they also are taught right, which is very, very tough nowadays. I can't even imagine. Parenting has to be really tough. So basically, I wouldn't be surprised if, the book gets targeted. And this goes back to how, like, God gave Moses, he gave Moses like the 10 commandments and some other commandments of how to live correctly back in the day. And that kind of fell off a little bit because of people following sin and like corrupting stuff. And then eventually he had Elijah be the prophet, and then same thing happened there. So God tried many different ways, and then eventually he was like, I'm going to send Jesus, my son, to do more than just be a prophet, but like to have more power, have the most strongest faith, to die on the cross, so that way it's easier for us to. So he's giving us a really powerful, meaningful, the most important message in the world ever in history. And then he's also going to die on the cross to make it easier for us for salvation. Okay. So, verse 12. But I say unto you that Elias came already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they listed. Likewise shall the Son of Man suffer of them. See, now does that make more sense? 13. Then the disciple understood that he spake unto them of John the Baptist. Remember, John the Baptist has already been beheaded. So now they like fully understand that what's gonna end up happening and why he's telling them to be hush hush right now about what. I mean, they just got done hearing God's voice. You think you would want to go here? You would want to go tell your best friend and your wife or your, you know. If I heard God's voice like that, even if I was scared in the moment, it's like seeing a UFO or something, like, or something spectacular, something out of the ordinary. If you saw it, you'd tell a bunch of people, you know, no matter what, like you'd want to. But they're not supposed to right now. I thought that was really good though. Okay, so we're gonna skim through this little part right here, but I'm gonna touch up on something that I've mentioned before, and I like this a lot because this was always my theory behind it, and this is what I always was pretty sure about, but it's because how Jesus says it a bunch of times, and it makes sense. So what happens is there's a demonic boy is healed. So verse 14, a certain man comes to him out of the group saying, Lord, have mercy on my son. He's a lunatic. He's sore vexed. Oftentimes he falls into fire and water. Okay, so he's possessed with a demon. Verse 16, I brought him to your disciples and they could not cure him. Okay, 17, then Jesus answered and said, O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? Okay, it's a little bit humorous in a way. Verse 17, Jesus answered and said, O faithless, okay, less, and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him to me. He's like, how long do I have to, he's like, how long do I have to be with you guys? Like you guys haven't learned by now? You haven't seen me do it? You're not paying attention? Like, it's in a way, it's a little bit of frustrating. It's like a frustration. It's a humorous frustration, but he's just telling the truth. And he's like, he's feeling like he's a father, right? Like, you know how you gotta like you gotta like Mama Bird has to let the birds fly the coop. Like, they got to teach them how to fly so they can like survive on their own. Well, Jesus is trying to teach so that way they can do things on their own. Okay, but they still can't because they tried and they couldn't, right? Verse 18, so then Jesus rebuked the devil and he parted from him and the child was cured within an hour. Now, the disciples couldn't heal him, right? This is really good because now the disciples come to Jesus and say, hey, verse 19, then disciples came to Jesus part, why could we not cast him out? And Jesus said unto them, here it is, because of your unbelief. For verily I say unto you, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, tiny, I don't know if you know what a mustard seed is, very, very tiny. It's like a speck that's on a hamburger bun. If you have faith of that of a mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. Okay, it says that faith can even move mountains. Now, you can't use your faith for like whatever you want to happen. If there is no need, because it comes through God, okay? It's got to be God's will. So like, I can't tell God to move this bottle of water over to the side of the table. He's not going to do that. Why does he want to move the bottle of water? If anything, if I'm telling him to do that, if I'm saying, hey, I got faith that you can do it, and I'm telling him to do that, really I'm testing him. I'm testing my own faith, actually. Deep down, I'd be like seeing if it can happen, right? And then like if it happens, then I'm gonna believe, and then I got the faith that I'm supposed to already have without seeing. So That's why, like, sometimes in the Bible, especially in the past, David, like David and Goliath, David was afraid of, like, the war. He had to build up the faith that he could win the war, and then he had to do it the way God wanted him to do it. So it was just in a stone. It was just in one stone. And there was like another battle where they were super outmatched. This is not David. This is, I don't think it was David. This is like in the Old Testament somewhere, but this army is in front of them, and they have to confront the army because they want to go to war. Like, there's gonna be a war, and God tells them to go out there, and they were outmatched. Think about if you were outmatched like 2-1, or it was probably more than that, like 5-1. Okay, so like they got 50 people. It's a lot more than that. Okay, they got 5,000 people, and you have 1,000 people. You would be intimidated. You wouldn't probably try to you probably wouldn't try to fight. You'd probably surrender. You wouldn't want to go to war. So what happens is God ends up making a lot more army with chariots that were on fire to the enemy. So the enemy didn't see 1,000. They saw probably like 50,000. So then they were intimidated and scared. So if I'm not mistaken, they never even fought. They gave up and surrendered or left. But they still had to listen to God and go confront them. They didn't know how God was going to work. Okay? That was like a miracle. But you had to have the faith to listen. If you have the faith to listen and it's God's will, he will do whatever he needs to do to make it happen. Does that make sense? So, like, in this situation, somebody's in desperate need. They had the faith for his son to get the demon out of him, but they at the time, they just didn't think it was possible. They had, and if you have the slightest doubt, let me try to, and this is how hard it is. If you have the most smallest doubt for something to work or something to happen or God to do a miracle, then you are right. It won't work. Your doubt is what stops it. It's not God not wanting to do it. It's the fact that you're a little faith. And I mean, like, super little faith, because you only have to have a faith of a mustard seed to move a mountain. Like, because God can do so much. So that's why he probably uses the word like faith of a mustard seed. It's like, for him, it's like, it's nothing. If he created the universe and the stars and the heavens and everything that ever existed, for him to like do a one miracle for you in your life is nothing. To bring somebody back from the dead, which, like we talked about in that one stream, the one kid who was like under ice for a long time, and they did CPR for an hour, for God to bring that kid back to life, which did happen, like, that was nothing. Okay, so, but the mom had enough faith that it could happen. When she asked, she actually believed that, like, what she was asking is possible, you know? So if you have any doubt of whatever you're asking is like too tough or like unlikely, that's part of doubt. So like, if you're going through a hard time, or if you're like, things seem, you know, tough, and don't ask for God if you don't have the faith to begin with, because if anything, it's not going to happen, and then you're going to be disappointed, and then it's going to actually test the little bit of faith that you had to begin with towards him. Okay? Because God doesn't, we shouldn't just be having faith and following God just because he does miracles for us. That would be using him. You'd be using him because of his power. That doesn't make sense. That'd be selfishness. So you have to understand that it's like, he can do what he wants if he wants, but he can do it through you, but only if he's willing to, and you have the full faith with no doubt. Okay? And there's probably whenever you ask for something, like he can do it in like there's like a million different ways that it can happen, and he's gonna choose one of those ways. And it might be a lot of times it's something that you don't even think of. So like if you were asked for like, I know it's like, okay, if I were to ask for $1 million, God's not gonna give me $1 million, most likely. But if I have faith that he can take care of me financially, which is the gist of it, technically that's what I should be asking for, if it's his will, you know. Please help me with my financial situation, however you want it to be done, you know. He will do it, like, and it'll be in like so many different ways, or things that you don't even like recognize at first until afterwards. After it happens and like you got through it and it wasn't as easy or as tough as you thought it was, like that's God working. Like a lot of times it's hard to even notice because like things will happen as coincidences. Like it's not a coincidence that like things are slowly working themselves out some magical way. That's if you had the faith to begin with when you asked them in the first place. Like don't ask them for like, obviously you don't ask them for like $1 million or that kind of thing, because you know money cannot be your God. You know what I'm saying? Money does not fix anything. But the principle of what I'm trying to say is you got to understand how to ask for things, but you have to have the faith 100% for it to even have a possibility of working itself out. And only if it's God's will. Just remember that. So don't be disappointed if it's not God's will and it does not work out. If you have 100% faith to begin with, but I promise you, it just takes the smallest little doubt. It takes the smallest little doubt for it not to work. So like when you ask for something and that little voice in your head is like, wow, this seems very tough and unlikely. If that comes in your head, then right there itself is all that it takes for it not to work. And that's on you. That's not on God. That's on you. Okay? So that's when you need to recognize it, and that's when you need to like get back deeper into the Bible. Get into the Word, get into what he says, understand what he says, so that way you can build up your faith to have 100% faith as we're supposed to. Okay? And then he can work in your life. Real quick, I'm going to go back up real quick. It says, remember like when they heard Jesus' voice? It says, unforgettable moment. 3 of Jesus' disciples had the opportunity to observe this dramatic scene of God's approving of his son Jesus, Moses, and the first great lawgiver, Elias, the first great prophet, appeared with Jesus, and God spoke from the heaven. The apostle Peter described the impact of this experience in 2 Peter. Remember how I said sometimes they like write similar, because Peter was actually there. Matthew was not. Matthew wrote about it, but Matthew wasn't there exactly. So they, translation of like how he heard them once he told them, and he put it in his chapter, in his writing, where Peter does something similar, but it's a little bit different. And when we get to 2 Peter, we'll talk about that, of course. All right, so we're almost done with chapter 17 here. Because you guys, like the mustard seed, unto this mountain remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. I just want to emphasize verse 20, how important that is. Like Jesus is saying, like, if you have faith in God, like, that's why you have nothing to worry about. God says, seek me with all your heart, and all will be given unto you. Like, he's not exaggerating. He's not telling you what you want to hear. He's not sugarcoating you. He's telling you what is and how it works. But when he says seek with all your heart, he means all of it. That's what doubt is. Like, when you seek with him when you want to, or like sometimes, or you do it for your own benefit, like that, those things are like not seeking with all your heart. So you'll never feel the full impact of God. I feel like a lot of people suffer from this, because a lot of people try to give the Bible a chance and try to give God a chance, but they are not really doing it for the right reason. They're not really doing it full-heartedly. Okay? It's like when you have a kid, you love them with all your heart. Okay, it's kind of like that. Like, you don't just love your kid a little bit, for the most part, especially if you purposely had a kid. If you accidentally had a kid, then I was like, that's because there's some parents out there, like, it's a mistake, it wasn't supposed to happen, caught them off guard, they don't really want it, they're thinking more about their financial situation, so they care about what their struggles of their own life and how it's going to be more complicated with the baby, But if, like, say you couldn't have a kid and you really want a kid, and then all of a sudden you got a kid, like, how much you would love that kid, right? With all your heart. Like, that is all, like, that's the kind of love we gotta have for God. That's how we gotta seek and, like, give him all that we got. All right, so here we go. Now this is, wait, how be this kind goeth not, prayer and fasting and okay. So now this is the money in the fish's mouth. Verse 24. And when they came to Capernaum, which is a city, they that received tribute money came to Peter and said, doth not your master pay tribute? He saith, yes. And when he was come into the house, Jesus prevented him, saying, what thinkest thou, Simon? Of whom do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute, or their own children, or of strangers? Peter saith unto him, of strangers. Jesus saith unto him, then are the children free. Okay, so so it's a custom that they pay money as a tribute. Okay, and they're saying, so, like, okay, what kind of kings take money from their own people? Is like what Jesus is referring to. Like, you don't force money upon anybody. You know what I'm saying? Ever. Like, you don't have to give money to show your seriousness towards something. With God, you gotta give him whatever you prize above God, like before you met him, like before you started following him. So if you, like, I don't know, whatever you idolize, whatever you really like, if you really like, it's what you do all the time. Think about what you do excessively, what you can't live without. For example, if you love hockey and you got to be able to give up hockey. If it's Sunday and there's a big game going on and you decide to watch the big game instead of going to church or, like, worshiping God, well, you just chose that day what's more important. You can record it, you can watch it later. Nothing changes the outcome of the game. Whether you watch it live or you watch it 10 years later, the same thing happened. And is it irrelevant to you? Not really. Nothing else happens in your life. So from that, technically you lose God, and then all of a sudden you got to put up with that, and you better hope that you're still alive to be able to change your mind. So that's like one small example, but like, I mean, it could be something as, you know, like if you, okay, a lot of people can refer to this, gluttony. So you, how many people take selfies of their food? Oh, look what I'm eating. Oh, look what I'm eating. Oh, this is so delicious. Oh, food. All right. You indulge too much into food, because what all food is to put nutrition in our body. We have made it into this glorious thing. And don't get me wrong, it's good to please your taste buds when you're eating. Obviously, you want to enjoy what you're eating when you're eating it, but to take it beyond that is definitely gluttony, okay? So if you're ever thinking about food, like it's one thing to think about food like when you start to get hungry, or like, you know, obviously like grocery shopping or plan what you're going to make that day in a way, but nothing more than that. But like, oh, what do we have to cook today? Oh, we have this and this. This will go good with it. That's it. That's where it should end. It shouldn't be too much more extravagant than that. I mean, obviously, if you're a chef and you're doing it for a job and trying to please others, that kind of thing, that's a little bit different. But for example, like, people be taking selfies and stuff of food is just ridiculous. Every once in a while, if it's like your favorite meal, like every once in a while, hey, I get it. But if you take more than 2 or 3 pictures of food on your social media a year, sorry, but you got a problem. Unless it's your job. Like I said, it's like a profession and it's a creation of it and a masterpiece of it because it's your job and you're the creator of it. That's a little bit different if you're an actual cook, but most of us are not. We read about it earlier in Matthew where God says you shall not care about what you eat. You shall not care about what you put on your body, what you're going to wear the next day. Like, we're not supposed to care about our fashion and what we look like in our outer appearance. We're not supposed to indulge in food that is really only supposed to put, keep our body going. That's all it is. We take it to the next step. We take it to the extreme. Okay? Those are the things we have to give up for God. Okay? Not just give up money, which is what people were thinking all the time. So they go to the city. They think that you have to give money. Peter already said that they would. And then Jesus is telling them, this ain't right. It's not supposed to be like this. And then verse 27, notwithstanding, lest ye should offend them. He's like, unless you want to offend them, go out into the sea and cast a hook. Take the first fish you catch, and when thou hast opened his mouth, there shalt find a piece of money. Take that money and give it to them for me and for you. Okay? So, that's what he does. That's what Peter does. Goes and catches a fish with money in his mouth for the tribute that is unnecessary. All right. Now we're on to chapter 18, boys, girls. Halfway done. All right. Now this is the caption is called "The Greatest in the Kingdom." I thought this was really good. Man, this is really good.
What's your name?
Brian G. What's up? How you doing? Thank you for the follow too. Appreciate it. All right, so we just did chapter 17 in Matthew. We're gonna go to 18, and 17 was pretty good. If you missed it, not sure, but in the very, very beginning, first time the disciples heard God's voice, and Jesus was there. There was 3 disciples. They heard his voice, and they instantly fell on their face in fear. It's pretty good, and I talked about it. But all right, here we go. Let's stay on track. This is chapter 18. It says, "The greatest in the kingdom." Now, this is really good, and I'll end up explaining why. At the same time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? So these are the disciples asking, right? Because you gotta think the disciples are actually following Jesus, right? And Jesus is like, obviously Jesus is their master, right? And they see him doing all these miracles, and so they look up to him. And because he has high power, authority, then they want to know like about authority, right? Pretty cool you're doing this. I also believe in Jesus. Nice. I'm happy to hear that, man. Yeah, I think it's always okay, so if you guys didn't see, Brian G says, pretty cool you're doing this. I also believe in Jesus and God. The reason why I'm doing this is, one, I want to read the whole Bible myself. Two, I think it's very important to do it New Testament. Do it when Jesus came, because things are a lot different. The Old Testament is more about history, plus a lot of things get twisted with like the way they're supposed to do things. They do things way different. So it's very important from the New Testament. I'm going to read all the New Testament. We do 1 or 2 chapters every Sunday. And then whenever that gets done, then we'll probably do the Old Testament. But I think it's very important to at least read the Bible verse for verse at least one time all the way through in your lifetime. Because this is our knowledge. This is our, like, this is the most... Without this, we have nothing. Without this, we don't understand anything. This is the truth. This is the word. This explains and shows us everything we need to know from God himself. Because God uses people to... Jesus, miracles, his messages, visions, prophets, all these things is basically God going through people and putting it into words. And then that is for history, for future generations such as us, to be able to go back and learn it. Okay? That's why it's like so important. Okay. Back to the chapter. They're asking, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Obviously, they know God is. Obviously, they know Jesus is there, like second. And earlier, God, I think, or Jesus even told them that John the Baptist at that time was one of the most men with the greatest faith on earth when Jesus came. But he said even John the Baptist would be the lowest of who's in heaven. Let that sink in for a second. Because at this time, there had to be tens and hundreds of millions of people on earth. And then there was like rabbis and people who were like holy, and the Pope, and stuff like that. Like possibly the Pope, I don't know. But because I don't know exactly when that started, but you get my drift. Is like people who like claim to be super holy. John the Baptist was in front of Jesus, and he was the highest at the time. And then this is what Jesus is going to tell the disciples. And Jesus called a little child unto him, and set him in the midst of them, and said, Verily I say unto you, except ye be converted, and become a little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. So you got to be converted, obviously. You got to commit everything, like we were just talking about. Sacrifice whatever you idolize, whatever you choose, to spend your time. It's really simple to understand what you idolize. If you're unsure, it's like what you're addicted to. It's like what you spend most of your time doing. If you have free time and you want to have fun, like what do you do? Think of it like that. For the most part, it's usually, whatever you're indulging too much time into is usually the answer. If you're continuously taking selfies, then you're idolizing in yourself. And I'm not saying don't love yourself. You should love yourself. You should love more of like your character and what you stand for. Like what makes you you, not like your outer appearance. Because like you could have been born totally different, then you wouldn't be thinking about your outer appearance like you do. And like I know how society and insecurities happen. So like girls suffer from this more than guys. That's why girls take more selfies than guys. it's because of that, but it's because of how you were like brought up in society. And society has kind of manipulated and made you feel like that is your worth. That's how you get acceptance. That's how you get people to like you. And that's totally wrong. And that's not, those are fake people. Like if you know what I'm saying? If somebody's going to like you for your looks and then all of a sudden, you know, you burn your face and your skin's all messed up, then they're not going to like your beauty anymore, right? Do you think we are in the end times? Brian G, unfortunately, it's getting closer every day, right? Once you understand good and evil and you see what's happening, the more you'll actually see that it's upon us. Like, I mean, I don't know where you live, what country, but it's because I used to do a lot of research and like studies and stuff, like just a lot of research into like nowadays and what's happening in the world and this and that. And you could already see the corruption in society and the lack of censorship and new laws getting passed and the wars and the tension around the world. And there's so much, it's very in depth, but you could see the bad and the evil pretty big. And now it's getting to the point where it's like, it's pretty intense, and it's what's evil and wrong is starting to become acceptable and normal in society. And then what is good is starting to get quieted, or it becomes offensive, and they're starting to attack it more and more. So like the tables are turning dramatically in the world of evil and good. And what does God do? Every single time that God intervenes, it's usually when evil is starting to get superior in a way. When evil starts to get superior, God always comes in and says, enough is enough. I'll give you a small example. And the Old Testament is a great example, and many examples of what I'm saying. We're talking about like Noah's Ark. There was tons of sin. That's why he built the boat. That's why the flood came, to wash away the sin, because sin was starting to get too much. Then God comes in and rebalances it. What up, King? Welcome. Another example would be Sodom and Gomorrah. I forget who it was, but he kept going to Sodom and Gomorrah, and he kept preaching to the city, because God told him. God said, hey, go to this city. They're sinning like very, very bad and intense, like extreme. So preach, condemn them, preach to them, try to help them. He kept going, and God, I'm pretty positive God said enough is kind of enough, but it never worked. So what happened is, and I'm pretty sure he was like, hold on, God, let me keep trying. He went back. After so long of trying, God said, walk away and don't look back. And then what did God do? Remember how I said, once the evil is too much and it just doesn't listen and doesn't fix itself, God intervenes. He made it rain fire from the heavens and destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Which people would be like, oh, that's evil. God is evil for destroying people. No, God is the creator of people. If an artist was to make a painting and he doesn't like his painting, for him to destroy his painting is not evil. It's justified. He has his justification of why he takes away what he created. He made our lives possible here on earth. So for him to take that away is not evil. We think it's evil because murdering another individual, human being is evil, but not the creator and God himself. And people who don't understand that, and people who try to battle God in the Bible, they'll try to use that as God is evil. And that is, and I can't, like, fluffers my feathers a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Because they don't understand. But forgive those who do not understand. It's not them. It's not their fault for not fully understanding, because if they didn't do their research and read the Bible themselves, then they don't know. So forgive them. God always says, forgive those who do not know. We're supposed to hate the sin, not the sinner. Okay? So it's like, it is what it is, but it's the lack of knowledge is what it is. You're kidding me, AJ? I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you've already told me all this. I'm talking to everybody, King Guru, not talking to just you. So yeah. So to answer your question, are we in the end times? It is getting more and more evil. Like the evil is coming more and more up as we speak. Yeah, none of that was directed towards you, King Guru. If you felt that way, then that's just the Holy Spirit speaking to you in your own heart. So basically, like, I don't want to get too much into it, Brian G, for your question, because it has to do with some other stuff. Eventually we'll get more into that, because I think what's going to end up happening is, like, I'm going to end up doing a lot more of this, like, you know, you can ask questions, like question and answers, but the more knowledge I have, the more I get through this, the more references I'll have, so then the more I can, the more correct information I can give, and the more like understanding we can have about it. Okay. So let's go ahead and finish this. I want to get back into this chapter that we're in. Okay, so the disciples are asking, like, who's the most powerful? Like, who's the greatest in heaven? Because they're curious, right? That's a curious question to ask. Probably because they want to know where they rank. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it came to me, it dawned upon me that, like, well, let's go ahead and keep reading it, and then I'll tell you, like, a little bit. So this is verse 4. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as the little child, the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoso shall receive one such little child in my name receiveth me. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones, which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged around his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. That's pretty harsh right there. So let me just alliterate exactly what he's talking about here. So disciples are like, hey, who's the greatest in heaven? Because they want to know where they stand. Okay. If you have that kind of curiosity, you're like, or you're striving for that superiorness, like that your rank, like, you know, which is wrong, because Jesus says you got to be humble as a child. Okay, first he says you have to be reborn. You have to believe in me. You have to be reborn, right? Salvation, you know, give up the things that you idolize, which will humble you. A lot of people think that they're humble and they don't really know what true humbleness is. You have to, I don't care where I stand in heaven. Okay. God says that he will give you things according to your works, crowns and all this and that, right? It says that in the Bible. So you will get rewarded, but you don't do it for the rewards. Okay. You don't do it because it's not like, oh, I got more rewards than this person in heaven, so you're no better than they are. Okay. Like, that's not the mentality, and it's not supposed to be like that. Okay. So we're supposed to be humbled as just like a child, because a child doesn't know any better. A child by themselves, before they get taught by society of, like, winning and losing, like the winner's better than the loser, that's false. That's totally false. Like, just because you win in events or a game one time doesn't make you better than the other person. Because what it is you're better at that game in the moment versus that person. That's all that is, and that's very, very small. That doesn't make you better than them permanently. That doesn't make you better a person. That doesn't make you better outside of that individual game that happened. None of that stuff, right? Because we can relate because we're gamers and stuff. But like this goes for any games. Like this could be like card games, sports games. And I think it's bizarre because a lot of times in sports, for example, you hear about this all the time to people. Everybody talks about the winner, right? Super Bowl champions, but people don't really talk about the second place winner, right? The second place people. The second place was better than the other 34 teams. They should get some respect for their performance that season, but they don't because society has made it so much that like winner is the only thing that matters. So like we're always striving to be better than other people. Does that make sense? And then it becomes this competition of being better at something, which is irrelevant to like the truth and the real purpose on life. You can be the best at something, but is that going to get you to heaven? Is God going to be proud of you for being the best at something on earth? No, he doesn't care about any of that. You could be the best at something, but you're still going to hell and you're still not serving him the way he wants you to serve him. It's like an ego thing. Okay. So to be humbled like a child is what he's trying to refer us to, is like having that simple mind, pure mind, right? That pureness, that mindset, like, because we get taught wickedness because it's in society. That goes back to your question, Brian G. Remember how you said, are we living in the end times? And I was explaining to you how evil's becoming more and more normal in society. That right there is what's teaching the younger generation and kids, especially if they don't have good parenting, that have understanding of the word and the knowledge, then they don't know any better, and they're more likely to be even more corrupt than what we were as a kid. Because I had a good parent, I had good teaching, but I still sinned and I still did bad things as soon as I got old enough, even when I was younger. I did a little bit, but you get my point. Is like it gets even worse for the younger generation. And God's not going to put up with that too much longer. That's because that's what displeases God the most, is like all his creation and majority of his creation is like mocking him and like not listening to him and starting to like target him, like target Christians and the Bible and whatnot. And that's when God's gonna eventually jump in and say enough is enough. So I know every day it's getting closer, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's in my lifetime. Like I can definitely see that being a possibility. Hopefully not, but if it is, it's God's will. He already warned us. He told us that it was going to happen. So I'm ready. Let's see. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this little child. So we got to learn to humble ourselves, because he said the same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And then he even says, and whoever shall receive one such little child in my name receiveth me. Okay. So you got to receive and believe in God, obviously. Because I want to go back to verse 3 real quick. And said, verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter in the kingdom of heaven. So so obviously it's like in steps. You got to accept Jesus and God, what he stands for. Got to accept, understand good and evil, and then you got to accept to do good and put away all evil. That's the point of God. God is good. You can't choose God and still be doing evil stuff. He's told us many times you will fall short and you won't make it. And then look at this, verse 6, but whoever shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, so believers in God. So if you shall mock them, if you shall try to belittle them, if you try to offend them, okay, if you attack them, whether it be verbally, physically, It says, it were better for him to hang himself by the neck or to be drowned in the depth of the sea. He says it would be better for him to do that. Think about how powerful that is. God is saying that when you go to hell, you're going to wish that you were just hung and that was the end of it, or that you were drowned in the depth of the sea, because that's how, like, technically torturous hell is really going to be. And that's it'll be the most miserable. You can't even imagine how bad it would be. And it's because you live through it. You feel it and you live through it. And there is no hope. That's like the biggest thing. Because, like, at least in theory, if you're in a house fire, at least you would think as soon as you die, it's over with. You know, it's going to, the whole dying part and getting burned until you actually physically die is going to suck. But after that, it's at least done. So it's only for like 2 minutes or something, right? So like 2 minutes of suffering. But in hell, it's ongoing suffering. And there is no hope. And not only the suffering part, but like, I heard that you're going to be parched for like water. Think about the most thirstiest you've ever been, where you're like, I need water. Like maybe you got done running a mile or something and you need something to drink. Picture that like 100 times worse. And then you don't get no water ever. Ever, 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 ever. And you always feel like that. So like, and like, so like think about like maybe like the most time you were sick. You had the flu and you're just like, you felt like you're going to die. You're just miserable. Like, picture that 24/7. You know what I'm saying? Think about the most pain you've ever been in. Times that by 100. And then that'll keep going. So you're going to be feeling that for until God puts away hell, which he might. He might, once he puts Satan in there, he might just like delete everybody. There's a possibility of that. He doesn't have to tell us if he's going to or not. That's his own decision, and we would never know. And it doesn't even matter if we know or not. But like, it's either that or he's going to just keep it, and then those people do have to truly suffer forever and ever. Which, that would be even worse. But regardless, we still make the choice in it. I think the Bible says after a certain time, you turn into ashes. If you can, Brian G, give me the exact scripture of it, and I'll look into it more until I come across it. I've never heard that to be specific. I know that God says that he says this a couple times. He says, I'm gonna make a new earth the way I intended to. And he says it like that, which is really awesome, because he made earth, and before he sent Satan and made humans, he had different intentions of, like, because obviously Satan wasn't going to be a part of it, and evil wasn't going to be a part of it. That was never his intentions. So he is going to make a new earth the way he intended to. So that's kind of cool. Whatever that may be, it's probably gonna be way different than like this earth. But just the fact of like he mentions that, I think is like awesome, because he says that a couple times. And then obviously there's heaven, So there's heaven. He's going to make a new earth the way he intended to. So he's got plans for just beyond when we die, we get separated. There's more plans, because he says this life here on earth is like a speck of sand. Well, think about how much sand there is on this earth. So if this lifetime is a speck of sand and all eternity, because eternity is forever and ever. So like, who knows what's going to happen in our lifetime then? That's what's going to be awesome. Like, yeah, a world without sin, which would be totally different than what we see and do. There probably will be no games with shooting and killing. Sorry to tell you if you're into shooters. You know what I'm saying? Like, who knows? Like, who knows what's really going to happen? It's just crazy, though. It's crazy to fathom, like, what it could be and, like, how long it's going to be. But, like, it's literally going to be, like, amazingness. And then it won't stop. And then there is no end. There is no death. There is no... You know what I'm saying? Like, because I'm one to... I used to be always like, I don't got enough time. Gotta hurry up. Like, this lifetime is all I got. But it's not. It's not even close. It's what we do in this time is what's important. And like with God, we're here for a test. We're put on this earth as a test to make the decision if we are going to fully believe in him and serve him. Remember, we talked about this a couple streams ago, and this is very important. And then we're going to continue. That you must not only put your roots down, which is your faith, to grow, but you also have to produce fruit. It says, don't get choked by the thorns, which is like the things that we idolize, sin. Remember how I said you can't be following God and still do sin? As soon as you start doing sin, you're not following God. Plain and simple. But when you follow God 100%, and I mean 100%, you start to produce fruits. So you're doing things that God would be pleased about. If it's like, hey, God, I'm doing this, would you be proud of this? And if you don't know, or if you have any doubts, the answer is probably no. So when you're producing good fruit. Because in the parable about the 4 seeds, only one of them grows and produces good fruit. And the good fruit is doing thy will of the Father. And that could be like little things. It could be raising money for charities. It could be helping people that are in desperate need of help. Maybe they're sick and you're helping them. This Bible study, for example, would be producing good fruit. Because I'm trying to help others understand. And I'm doing it also for myself, but doing it for others as well. So things like that. So it's like producing good fruit. You can't almost go all the way and then hold back. When you hold back and you're not producing good fruit, you're not doing thy will of the Father. Because you're supposed, and everybody has different things. Okay. And a lot of times you have to use whatever you're good at is usually. So if you're a doctor, you would go help sick people, probably not just in the hospital, like the local hospital, but you'd probably like once a year or something go do it elsewhere where people are more desperate and don't have help. You're going outside of your comfort zone. You're trying to help more of the world, people, you know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. Because you have the capability of doing so. God will tell you or bring it up to you or show you like, hey, somebody will come and ask you like, hey, we're going, or you'll hear about it. Like, hey, we're doing this, what do they call them? Missionary trips. Hey, we're doing a missionary trip to Mexico, to this poor city for a week where we're going to do a couple surgeries. We would like for you to join us. Can you do it? And then you say no. Well, God just put somebody in front of you for an opportunity to produce good fruit for them, and you just shut them down. Oh, I'm too busy. I got my kid's sports. Your kid is in a sports team, and he always has been. He always will be. But you're giving up one small little thing, which somebody else could take care of for that week, because you are not helping. You see what I'm saying? Stuff like that. Because in God's eyes, if you were to say, hey God, what's more important? Helping those sick people or my little kid winning, not even winning, but participating in this sporting event? He's going to already tell you. like, are you even asking this question right now? So yeah, stuff like that. Produce good fruit. Don't ignore it, God. Go all the way. Okay, so verse 7. Woe unto the world because of offenses, for it must needs to be that offenses come, but woe to the man by whom the offense cometh. Wherefore, if thy hand or thy foot offend thee, cut them off. Okay, we kind of already talked about this before. I'm going to read real fast. If your hand or thy foot offended God, cut them off and cast them from thee. And it is better for thee to enter life halt or maimed, rather than having 2 hands and 2 feet to be cast into the everlasting fire, aka hell. And if your eye offended thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. If it is better for thee to enter into life with one eye rather than having two eyes cast into hellfire. So God is saying like how important it is. Like, he's not saying actually cut off your hand and pluck out your eyes. We would all have no eyes, we'd all have no hands, we'd all have no feet. All right? It's not what he's saying. He is saying that how pure we have to be. Okay? So when you do something wrong, it is that important to fully be sorry to fix it. Okay? So if you like steal something, even if you think it's small, like, okay, when I was a kid, my cousin had like these video games that I didn't have. So sometimes like when I stayed the night, I would like one like I think I did it once because I felt guilty and I knew it was wrong, but like I knew it wasn't a big deal, but I like accidentally took it home, right? Accidentally took it home so I could play it, and then I'm gonna like, oh hey, you know, like give it back, right? I know it sounds stupid, but it's like I didn't have to. I could have asked nicely. Maybe you would have gave it to me, or I could have like waited until like, you know, birthday or Christmas, or saved up allowance and then got it myself, something like that. But instead, I ended up stealing it. Somebody would be like, or like if you tell like a lie, like, oh, the lie ain't gonna hurt this person that much, or you maybe tell a story, you tell a little lie in it, like a fib, to make yourself sound better. That little fib is a lie. Doesn't matter. You in your head, it's small, but in reality, a lie is a lie. Okay? So like that's like what God is saying. If you do something with your hand, chop it off. Like, it's extreme. He's saying like if you do something, like if you do a sin, that will stop you from going to heaven. Like that's, and God says so many times of like how little people are going to be in heaven. Like, and even John the Baptist was like the lowest in heaven. Like how strong we have to be to even make it there, you know? And we did this last Sunday. Peter was walking on the water. He was walking on the water all the way to Jesus, looked at the storm, all of a sudden got scared by the storm and started drowning. He just got done walking in the storm, on the water, many steps, which is already crazy enough. So how would you even think that that storm's going to stop what's happening? And he already saw miracles, and he already knows Jesus a little bit. So like, if Peter can lose his faith after seeing so much, it's so hard for us because we don't even get that experience, you know? So that's how tough it is. And like, we have to realize that, because if we don't realize that, we are in big trouble and we don't even know it. We will fool ourselves that we have strong faith, and we're still doubting, you know? We're not 100%. Or like you might have some small doubts, like, you know, like what if not? Like what if, you know, what if it ain't true? Or like some parts or something. That's why it's so important to always like maintain and keep growing your faith, which is your knowledge. That's how you're going to grow your faith. Keep growing your knowledge. Keep doing works for God and produce His fruit, and keep praying with the correct way of praying and asking, you know, in God's will, you know, let things be done. Don't tell Him what to do. Don't do a prayer where you're telling Him what should be done. You can ask nicely for things and say, you know, if it's your will, can you, you know, will you be able to make this happen? And don't think for a quick second that it's going to be the way you're thinking. Know for a fact that there's a million different possibilities that can happen. It could happen tomorrow, but it could also happen in 20 years. If somebody has cancer in my family and I'm praying that, you know, and it looks like they're on their deathbed, and I'm like, you know, God, help them like overcome this. If it's your will, because like technically it might be that might be God's way of, God doesn't make cancer, you guys. Things in this world make cancer, and I think that's from like the devil. But or we consume things in this world that we're not technically supposed to. Also, man-made things happen, so that interferes with the body and this and that, right? So we're exposed to this kind of thing. Now, if that's how God's going to take that person out of this world, that's what's going to happen. Okay? No matter how much I pray, no matter how much I would like for that person to stick around longer, if that's what God wants, that's his will. Now, if God is going to overcome it, then he will overcome it. If he has that plans and also with the power of prayer and faith, then it'll happen, but it'll happen in however he wants. It might not be like right away. It might be like all of a sudden he like starts to get better and then he starts to like fight it, and then all of a sudden he tries a new thing that actually helps him specifically, and it does buy him an extra couple years or something. Maybe that's part of the miracle. Like, you just see what I'm saying? But it might still kill him later. But like maybe power of prayer and stuff, God was like, fine, I will allow these steps to happen because I can see the future if I allow it, and then I'll help, intervene a little bit where like he shows him, the doctor, the substance to use for him specifically or whatever, and all of a sudden he buys another 5 years, and then like I can spend those 5 years with him or something like that. So like it can be totally different than what you expect. So whenever you ask for anything, don't expect it to happen. Like, have faith that it can happen some way, somehow, but don't expect it. Because if you're expecting it when you pray it, when you say it, like it is 100% going to happen, like when you pray it, if you expect it to happen like immediately or like plain as day, you're basically telling God, I want it done this way. I'm going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to act like I'm asking, and then I demand it. Like, I expect it to be like this. That's different. Like you're telling God what to do, and that's, God don't like that. So just, okay, let's go ahead and get into this. I'm getting a little bit sidetracked here. All right, so this is verse 10. Now this is called the parable of the lost sheep. We've already kind of read something about this. I'll cruise through this part. Take heed that ye despise not one of these little ones. For I say unto you that in heaven there are angels do always behold the face of thy Father in heaven. For the Son of Man is to come save that which was lost. So Jesus is here to save those who do not understand, those who are not following him, which is like a lot of people. How think ye, if a man had 100 sheep and then one went astray, doth he not leave the 99 and goeth into the mountains and seeketh the which one that has gone astray? And if so, okay, I want to like say this before we read the last two verses of it. Okay, and I know how a lot of us would think. If we all were shepherds and we had 99 sheep and one left, we would not leave the 99 to go get the one. We would be more afraid, like, and that's even if you put them, like, we wouldn't probably, we'd be like, oh, well, that sucks. He's probably doomed. I probably won't find him. He's probably, like something, right? Like, we wouldn't even bother. It's too much time. It's too much of a nuisance. It's like we already have 99, so we don't need the one. But the way God works, Jesus works, is he doesn't let one go just because. Okay? And now let's continue reading. Verse 13. And that's how we have to be too, by the way. Because, like, pay attention to the next two verses. And if so, that he find it, verily I say unto you, he rejoiceth more of that one sheep than all of the other 99 which went not astray. Even so, it is not the will of your Father which is in heaven, that one of these little ones should perish. Okay? So, it's important to always try your best, basically. Okay? So, because you don't want one to perish. He even says, you should rejoice more that you helped one person than like even the 99 that was already kind of safe, that did not go astray. It's very, very important. I thought that was pretty good. All right, verse 15. Here we go. Moreover, if thy brother shall okay, this is sin and forgiveness. This one's really good, dude. This is really good. All right, verse 15. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. Okay? So if somebody does you wrong, it's important to confront them. Confront them in private. And if he shall hear thee, that doesn't mean actually hear physically, but hear and understand, right? Like that connection. Because it's all like sometimes people do things out of anger or jealousy or, you know, regret, frustration, many different things, right? So people do things for whatever reasons, and it's never, you know, God always says, treat thy, you know, you're supposed to love thy enemy as thy neighbor. Treat others as you'd want done unto you is another good verse. So he states this many different times of, because that's what is of good, right? Because God is of good. Satan is of things that are evil. In this world, things are either good or evil. There is no gray area. It's not like, well, it's kind of good or it's kind of evil. It's one or the other, okay? Whether it seems extreme or not. So you're supposed to treat others as you would want treated unto you. So if you're acting a certain way towards somebody, how would you like it if they did that to you? Okay? If the answer is like, well, you know, and it's not even like that you can't handle it or something. It's just like if you wouldn't want it, okay? Whether a little bit or a lot. So like, and then it says, go and tell him his fault. So it's okay to call somebody out. It's perfectly okay to call somebody out. And I'm very, very strong about this, and this is how I am. I'm very, very stern and blunt. So when somebody acts a fool, or if somebody is like, I know their actions are not right, I will confront them about it. So, and sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. But it's always good to do so. I mean, there's a good way. Do it with a good heart and a good intention, because you're not trying to belittle the person. You're not trying to make them feel bad. You're not trying to, because you're supposed to hate the sin, not the sinner. Because remember, love thy enemy. So you got to forgive them, for they do not know. They don't know any better, so they don't understand good and evil, or let alone even maybe believe in it. So they just don't. It's to them, the comprehension is not there, but it's okay to still like confront it, okay? But do it in a loving, caring way, okay? Because you're not trying to like, two wrongs don't make a right, right? Okay. Now we're gonna skip a little bit of this, but the last two verses of this is really good, which is 21, 22. Okay. Okay, well here, let's go a little bit above it. Okay, verse 18. Verily I say unto you, whatsoever ye shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whateversoever ye shall loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again I say unto you, that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. For where two or three are gathered together in thy name, there am I in the midst of them. Okay. So it's like, heaven is pure, so you gotta You got to do things that are of good and pure. Remember how I said like true intentions and pureness? That's like what I'm referring to. Okay, now verse 21 and 22 is really good. Now this is Peter. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Till 7 times? That's what Jesus says. He says, so if somebody is doing wrong, you know, or ask for forgiveness, but they keep doing it, he's like, how many times should I forgive them? Because obviously we would almost think that like everybody gets one, right? You only forgive once. It's not true. Listen to what Jesus says. Jesus saith unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. And he doesn't necessarily mean 77 times. He's saying it's a lot more than you think. Basically, as many times as it takes. Okay. Now, obviously, you don't want to try to like, you don't just forgive someone. Okay, a lot of times when people are doing wrong, or like, a lot of times they're not really truly sorry right away. Usually it takes time for them to like see that they're in the wrong. And it doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes they have to hit rock bottom. You may have heard that. People change when they hit rock bottom. It's either people change when they hit rock bottom, or technically once you actually fully understand God and the truth and good. Because if you're doing evil and you're okay with doing evil, you're not going to feel sorry for doing evil if you don't know good. If you don't believe in good and like God, which is the understanding of good and evil, you know? God explains what good and evil is, but God stands for good. So like you don't believe in it, then you don't have no remorse. Like, yeah, in society, things are certain like tolerable. It kind of, I mean, when things are like censored or banned, for example, in a community or like in social medias or something, for example, like there's a reason why like it's allowed and not allowed, because like technically you're doing things that you're not supposed to, which is technically, if you actually understand it and go deeper into it, it is like technically evil. Because in the world does understand that evil, like certain measurements of evil are intolerable, right? That's why we have like even like prisons and jail and courts and stuff. So like you get locked up for certain things, and that's just because like it is wrong, but like it's so wrong that people really see that it's wrong, even people who don't believe or understand good and evil. Okay, we're almost done here, but I thought that was pretty good there. All right, 23. Okay, this is Matthew 18, chapter 18, verse 23. This is the parable of the unforgiving servant. Therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king, which would take account of his servants. And when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him, which owed him 10,000 talents. Let's say money. 10,000 talents. $10,000. Let's say it like that. But for as much as he had not to pay his lord, commanded him to be sold, and his wife and children, and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant therefore fell down and worshipped him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. Verse 27. Then the Lord... Okay, so this guy owes somebody of a higher authority, because he's saying Lord and King. Okay, so he owes somebody something. Okay, and it doesn't really matter about the authority part, but he owes somebody who has power over him, so like he has to do it. So like, because the king says, if you don't pay me, I'm gonna sell your wife and your children. Okay, that's pretty harsh, right? Since you owe me this and you can't pay it, he's threatening them. I'm gonna get rid of your wife and your children until you pay me. The servant fell down and he started worshiping him and saying, Lord, have patience with me and I will pay you it all. Verse 27 here. Then the Lord of the servant was moved with compassion, right? He felt sorry. And he loosed him and forgave him of his debt. Okay, he said, you know what? I see that you're sorry. I hear what you say. So I won't do it. You don't owe me. Or like he forgave him the debt, let's say. And maybe he forgave him the debt or like completely, don't know. Or maybe like, and this could be just a story. This is a parable. So it's not necessarily meant that it happened. It's a story to relate a message. And it's coming from Jesus himself. So it's important. But he could have also been saying like maybe I'll postpone it, right? You don't have to pay me right now. I won't take your women and children, like your wife and your children. I'll give you more time. Okay, he's being nice. He's being lenient, right? Because he had compassion for him. Here's number 28. But the same servant, okay, went out and found one of his fellow servants, okay? And pay attention to that, because servant and then his fellow servant. So now he is like the higher authority, right? Just like the king and lord was higher authority of the servant that he just had compassion for. Now like the same situation is happening, but with that same servant, okay? So he went and found out one of his fellow servants, which owed him 100 pence, let's say $100. And he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, pay me that you owe me. So he's demanding payment just like the king did, right? It sounds like he's doing it more violent in a way, like threatening him instead of like his family. But it doesn't matter. He's threatening whatever, like something, right? And his fellow servant fell down to his feet and besought him, saying, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. And he would not, but went and cast him into prison till he should pay the debt. So that same servant that got a second chance, he didn't give his servant a second chance. Instead, he threw him in prison. Okay? Now, pay attention to what's about to happen next. This is good. So when his fellow servants saw that was done, they were very sorry and came and told unto their lord all that was done. So now they went and told the king or the lord what that guy just did. And now that lord is about to confront that same servant he had compassion for. Verse 32. Then his lord, after that he had called him and said unto him, O thou wicked servant, I forgave thee all the debt, because you desiredest me. Shouldest not thou also have had compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I had pity on you? And his lord was angry and delivered him to the tormentors till he should pay all that was due unto him. So likewise shall my heavenly Father do also unto you, if you have your hearts forgive not every one of his brothers their trespasses. Okay? So the parable is happening, and then like Jesus refers to the last verse to reiterate on why he's even saying all this. Okay, so and you could see that like forgive them of all the debt because thou desirest me. So like, but he didn't do it because he even called him a wicked servant. So this guy, this situation, the servant, because a lot of people do this, but you you say you're sorry, or you ask for forgiveness because of the situation you're in, because you do it for yourself. You're not doing it because you're truly sorry. You're just doing it for whatever reason, right? And then, so he kind of tricked the Lord or the king into being compassionate and forgiving him. And then he says, I forgive you of all your debt because of what you said and did. And then he said, should not thou have had compassion for thy fellow servant? You should have, just like I had compassion, you should have too, you know? But it shows that like that wasn't the case. And this happens all the time, you guys. Verse 34, and his Lord was upset. So then he punished him as he was going to begin with. Till he got like lied to. And then verse 35, so likewise shall thy Father do also unto you, if your hearts do not forgive not every one of his brother and their trespasses. Trespasses mean like their wrongdoings to you. Okay? So remember how like Peter asked, like, how many times are we supposed to forgive people? And he said, as many as it takes. It's like, you're still supposed to forgive people, but be careful, obviously, because like of the situation that happened. So like, you can tell when somebody's truly sorry or not, but at the same time, it's important to know that if you don't forgive others, God will not forgive you. Okay? If you hold on to those grudges, if you hold back and you do all this stuff, you can't expect God to do the same thing. Okay? We're going to stop there because those are the two chapters we had to do, 17 and 18. Now, next week, we're going to do chapter 19. Probably 19 and 20. But 19 is going to be really good. How long did that take? Yeah, a little less than 2 hours. Yeah, we'll do 2 more chapters. 19 is on marriage and divorce. And I think that's going to be pretty good because everybody has a lot of questions about like what the Bible says about marriage and divorce, especially divorce in general. But even marriage, like, it's very important because, I mean, a lot of people are too busy trying to find happiness in a certain person. Person does not hold your happiness. It's important to find somebody who you have the same yoke with, like you have the same pathways, like you're headed in the same direction, you have the same beliefs, morals. That stuff's really important. And he's already told us that before. But it should get really good. It should help when it comes to like relationships and whatnot. And then it looks like there's some other couple stories here. Jesus is going to foretell his death. That should be pretty interesting. There's ambition on James and John. I wonder what that's about. And yeah, another healing of 2 blind men. So I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. And we'll just take care of that. So enjoy the rest of your day, you guys. Appreciate you. And take care. Love you guys. Stay blessed. Enjoy your week.